Hey, love. Are you looking for a mastermind experience to help you expand your business, deepen your impact, and grow your income in 2020? If so, I have a really special invitation to share with you, which is that the Soulful Leadership Mastermind 2020, which is our third annual mastermind program, is now open for enrollment. If you would like to fill out an application and apply, you can go to emilycastle.com/mastermind. And you can also find all the details about our 2 international retreats. This coming year, we'll be going to Sardinia, Italy, and Costa Rica again. So both blue zones, and I'm so excited to welcome in this cohort of women. We have incredible guest mentor trainings lined up for you. There's also private and group coaching with me every single month. You get bonus access to the Soulful Business Academy so that you can refresh some of your soulful business building skills and your leadership skills and make sure that you are staying up to date in your business. And there is so much more available. So I want to invite you to go check it out if it's something that you've been searching for and you really want to take your business to the next level. You want to scale, you want to grow, you want to create more impact and income in your work. You want to make sure that the work that you're doing is actually the work that your soul is here to do and not just something that feels like you should or the right thing to do. With air quotes, you can't see me, but that's what I would be doing if you could. So if you're feeling intrigued by that, I would love to invite you to come on over to emilycastle.com/mastermind and fill out an application so you and I can hop on the phone and talk about it and make sure that it's the right fit for you. I'm so excited about this experience and cannot wait to lead a new group of women in the new year on this incredible journey. Welcome to Sexy Soulful Success, the podcast for women leaders who are ready to transition from exhausted hustle to enlivened flow in their businesses and beyond. I'm your host, Emily Castle, leadership and business coach for ambitious, high-achieving women entrepreneurs. We will be hearing real behind-the-scenes stories, inspiring words of wisdom, and actionable strategies from women who are creating their empires with sexy confidence, soulful alignment, and an abundant mindset for success. You'll also hear shorter solo episodes from me to help you launch, grow, and scale your business by working smarter, not harder. Plus, you'll have the opportunity to listen in as I coach real women leaders from our community about challenges and burning questions in their businesses. My mission is to help you walk away feeling more confident in your own journey, free to embrace and express your innate feminine wisdom in all you do, ready to deliver your unique contribution to the world, and inspired to take the necessary action to grow your impact and income through your business. Let's dive into today's episode. Today's guest is Kirsten Karchmer. Kirsten is a CEO and founder of Brazen and an innovator in precision medicine and digital therapeutics. She focuses on personalized nutraceuticals, lifestyle wellness, and biobehavioral interventions for women's health. She is an integrative medicine practitioner and researcher with extensive experience in biomedical sciences, functional medicine, nutrition, and digital health, mechanisms of mind-body healing, and evidence-based phytotherapies. Kirsten has spent her entire adult career in the service of women's health and has helped over 10,000 women over the last 20 years to improve their health, cycles, and fertility. In 2013, Kirsten translated her successful clinical programs into technology-enabled platforms that provide an affordable and scalable fertility solution. Conceivable was named one of the most innovative health tech startups from MedTech in 2015, the best fertility app by Healthline in 2016, and has been featured in TechCrunch, Fox News, The New York Observer, PSFK, The Daily Dot, and Huffington Post. Kirsten has presented at South by Southwest, Health 2.0, Fertility Planet, and lectures internationally on infertility, PCOS, endometriosis, women's health, and the future of integrative medicine, and using technology to better serve patients, providers, and healthcare systems. Kirsten has been recognized as one of the top female startup founders to watch, the recipient of the Texas Trailblazer Award for Innovation in Healthcare, and is a contributor to Huffington Post, Mind Body Green, and Goop magazine. She is also the author of the upcoming book, Seeing Red, available November 12th, 2019. And I am so excited to have you here on the show today, Kirsten. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to talk, about everything that's sexy and soulful and how that relates to women and people with periods and everybody who is interested in being their best self. So thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm so delighted to have you here. And the first question that I always ask is around sexy, soulful success and what that means to you.
Well, first of all, I love that term, sexy, soulful success, because I think as a female entrepreneur, we don't have so many role models of highly successful. There are some, but we don't have just tons and tons of highly successful female entrepreneurs. And often female entrepreneurs, we just try to fit in a male, directed world. And so we forget about our secret power being our sexy and soulful part that helps us to bring something different to the table. And so, as an entrepreneur, that's what I think is like, how do we contact what is most inherently, for those who identify as female, feminine, and how do we bring that to a table to innovate, to create things that were never thought of or seen before, and to show up in a different conversation to make a difference in the world. And, if you look at female entrepreneur, female leaders, the most recent research shows that they outperform male leaders by almost 38%.
Wow.
And so it's really clear that we do bring something really novel to the table. And I love framing it in terms of being sexy and soulful. And, for me, I'm most connected to my sexy and soulful self when I'm working on the things that are keeping me from having access to it, whether that's my mind, my thoughts about myself and what's possible, whether it's my physical body, how I'm taking care of it, or the relationships that I surround myself with. So it has sort of like double meaning for me.
I love that so much. And I love that stat that you threw in there about the effectiveness of female leaders. And I totally believe that is only going up and up and up over the next decade, that it's going to be more widely seen as so valuable to have more women at the top. And that's so exciting to me. And also, I love what you shared about the innovation piece, because I think the feminine perspective and women's perspectives are just so different. And when we bring that into a space where we can innovate, where we can create things that the world needs and be of service, it's so necessary. And we're starting to see, I always love seeing so many women entrepreneurs on like Instagram and online, and just hearing about the things that we're creating, because they're things that haven't been thought of before women's voices were at the table. Things like so many menstrual cup companies now, and just so many things that are needed, but would never be thought of by a room full of men, which is so great. It's so great to see.
I love that. And also I think that, if we're just being a little bit stereotypical, men are less good at multitasking, and women tend to be better at multitasking. And sometimes in business that can be seen as a liability, but at least from the point of innovation, when you can multitask, you're actually able to see many perspectives at the same time and sort of juggle them. And I actually think that's where those disparate things start to interact, is where you get innovation. For us, at Brazen, being able to marry, 5,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine with the most forward-thinking, digital, technology to, in the service of women in their periods, that's pretty interesting. And certainly if you're thinking of it linearly, you end up with a tracker, right? Where you're just like, hey, put your data in and get your data out. And so I think that's really fascinating. I just have to say this crazy thing. I'm in my home office today, and I back up to a green belt, and a pig just walked through my yard.
Oh
if I
my
felt
gosh.
it there. I mean, a little small pig just walked through the backyard, and I almost couldn't talk anymore. So that's my
that's gotta have some symbolism around this conversation.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, maybe that too. Oh my gosh. Awesome. So tell us, I know you have had an incredible career so far, and you've created so many things, and I'm just like so impressed and excited about all the things that you have going on at the same time, from Brazen to Conceivable to this new book now. I would love to just hear about how you came to this work and how you realized, I guess, that this was your work, your calling, and what your soul was craving to bring forth.
I think my soul is a little distracted often, so I get interested in a lot of different things. So the quick story is, when I was 20 years old, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I couldn't walk without a cane. I was really sick, and I was teaching linguistics at the University of Texas, and mostly sleeping as much as I could between all of my classes, like, industrial toilets flushing. I would sleep in the bathroom where there was a couch. And I ended up having a lumbar puncture, which is where they put a tiny hole in your spinal cord to extract some fluid. It's a test they do for MS. And my body was so incredibly depleted that the hole couldn't close. So I was leaking cerebral spinal fluid, and I would just pass out. Wow. I could tell it was happening, feel like the lights were going down, and I would just say, I have to lay down for a few minutes, whether I was teaching or doing whatever. And then I would lay down, it would equalize, and then I would be fine for a little bit longer. And at the same time, I had taken a job teaching at Seoul National University in Korea. And I wanted to be, I was 21 years old or so. I wanted to be able to defend myself. So I was taking the Korean Special Forces training, which is a Korean martial arts that's really good for disabled people in a way, because it's sort of one strike finish, and you use a cane as a weapon. So I thought that was going to be really cool. I wanted to do that so that I could be more like, I could use my disability as a asset and a weapon. And one of my classmates was in acupuncture school at the time, and she kept saying, you should really, and I kept laying down during class because the whole passing out thing. And she's like, you should really go to my teacher. I think he could close that hole for you. And I was like, shut up. I've already had surgery. Like, acupuncture is like going to a psychic. That's never going to work. And she said, wait, you can't just keep going on like this. What would it hurt just to try one time? And so I went. I was incredibly arrogant and haughty, and I hid my cane, I hid my chart, and this young Chinese doctor came in and started feeling my pulses, and he didn't say anything. He didn't look at my chart, and he said, oh, you're so tired. And I was like, whatever, everybody's tired. And he kept going. He didn't care I was being so bratty. And he says, oh, you cannot digest food. And I said, oh yeah, well, I have watery diarrhea like 10 times a day. And so he keeps feeling, he goes, oh, you have muscle weakness. And when he said that, I was like, okay, you can guess tired. Everybody really is tired. And a lot of people have digestive issues, but the muscle weakness, that's pretty hard. And I was diagnosed with MS a few years ago, and he starts clapping and saying, makes perfect sense. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what makes perfect sense? And he said, well, when you were born, you had MS, but your constitution, or the strength of your body, was really strong. And then what happened is, I was a competitive gymnast, and then I was a competitive tennis player, and I'm a type A, super hard overachieving person. And he's like, you just worked until you're 18 years old. And then you just worked all your juice out. And suddenly your disease became stronger than your constitution, and it manifested.
Wow.
And it's been continuing to get worse as your constitution gets weaker. Our job is to make your constitution stronger and see if we can get you into remission.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's what happened.
I love this.
And then now I surf all over the world. Like,
wow, really?
I would say I'm not going to use a cane at all. I would say I didn't cure my MS, but definitely put me in a place where I rarely have problems. And mostly for me, my MS is the feedback mechanism of how well I'm caring for my body. And so I always say, and people think it's crazy, that like having MS was the best thing that ever happened to me, because one, I learned what it meant to be a very, very sick person, and what it takes to transcend that when you don't feel good and you're tired and you don't have resources. And so I ended up, like, right the next year I went to acupuncture college, and that was my second master's degree. And immediately when I was in, my clinical training, I started noticing the menstrual cycle gives you so much an acupuncturist's job is to not just, you come in for asthma, we just don't give you acupuncture and herbs for asthma. We look at the whole system, what you're eating, how you're sleeping, all your other signs and symptoms, and try to figure out how are those things related. And so I started noticing that the menstrual cycle gave you so much diagnostic information, and that actually you can tell if what you're doing is working if the menstrual cycle starts correcting. And so I started really becoming obsessed with the menstrual cycle, as if anyone has ever said that in the history of humanity. But I was really obsessed with what can I learn from the menstrual cycle. And I started my first practice. It was one of the first reproductive acupuncture centers in North America, and ended up, taking care of more than 10,000 infertile women and women with serious menstrual disorders. And during that time, I realized, like, wow, when people come in, their menstrual cycles, their temperatures, their lifestyles are sort of all over the place. But as we work together and we start fixing everything, including the habits, including the diet, including the mindset, including the signs and symptoms, that the menstrual cycle would take this very distinct shape, meaning that I just identified it as like the ideal menstrual cycle. So that looks like a 28-day cycle. You ovulate on cycle day 14. You don't have PMS or cramping. You have 4 days of bleeding in which you soak a tampon or a pad every 4 hours, not more, not less. Fresh red blood, no cramping, no clotting, no spotting. I might have already said that. And that your temperatures looked a particular way. And when women's periods looked that way, first of all, everything else was a million times better. So the asthma, so the anxiety, so the fatigue, because in order to get the menstrual cycle to look that way, you have to fix everything. That once they got there, they had an extremely high likelihood of natural conception, despite whatever had been happening in the past. And so that was about 6 years into my practice. And then I started really doubling down on, like, what are the exact levers and what are the fastest ways to get that? What are the right formula combinations using Chinese herb, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then fast forward to 2013, I was at a conference presenting, and the person who was presenting before me was talking about the epidemiology of infertility, that 7 million women can't get pregnant in the US.
Oh, wow.
But in that year, only
7 million?
Yeah, 7 million.
Out of how many women, just to get it?
So about 100 million.
Okay. Which is significant, 7%, yeah?
Right. And that year only 100,000 had in vitro fertilization, and that there were only 1,000 reproductive endocrinologists. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been so proud of helping 10,000 women. I haven't helped anybody. I got to do something. One, what I do, if you see me, it's too expensive. So that's cost prohibitive, and I don't like that. But I mean, you have to make a living. I'm a single mom, right? But, and so I thought, how can I put what I've learned in the last 20 years into the hands of every woman at 100th the cost of IVF? And so I started this company, Conceivable. We built technology that was able to basically mimic exactly what I would do in my clinic, except take out the acupuncture. So it could predict the likelihood of natural conception. It could identify all the problems and all those things we talked about. And then it could curate the right Chinese herbal formulas to take for each phase of your menstrual cycle. And then could also curate multidisciplinary interventions, meaning like the correct stress management solutions for that person, the correct exercise routine for that person at that period, the correct dietary interventions for each phase of the menstrual cycle, and so on and so on. And we were a little bit early in the market, and women would say, like, oh, an app can't fix my fertility. It costs $22,000 to have a baby with IVF. How can you do this for $200? And so we were like really trying to help educate women about what's possible and how we can do it really cost effectively. And around that time, I wrote this article for Goop magazine called What Your Period Can Tell You About Your Health. And that ended up being one of the most performant articles of all time at the time of publication on the magazine. But what was more important about that, sorry, this is a long answer.
No, it's great.
But what was more important was that during that time, I got hundreds of emails from women, and literally it was almost the exact same email saying, hey, I'm 26 years old. I read your article. I'm not in a relationship. I don't want to have a baby, and I'm not touching shit called conceivable. But I heard you know how to fix periods, and I'm really, really fucking sick every single month. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And I got so many, and they would make me cry. Like, I just had no idea how many women were suffering, and started looking at the epidemiology of menstrual disease. And I found that, last year, well, 2 years ago now, that 82% of women reported life-interrupting menstrual pain or PMS.
Wow.
That's almost 80 million women. So you look at fertility.
That's
right?
Not like, that's almost everyone. Like, just to think, like, no one, if you're in a room full of women, most people, it would be so rare to have a healthy, normal period that didn't cause issues in your life.
Yeah, disruption or suffering or whatever.
Wow.
And when I read that, I was just sick. I just felt so sick, and I thought, how the hell can we be in the middle of a women's movement?
Right.
How can we rise up? How can we transcend anything when 80% of us are unwell from our menstrual cycles every month, and no one is talking about this, and nobody's doing anything about it. Yep. And I just, like you asked, like, where, what happened in my soul, like that moment, just like that moment when I met with that acupuncturist 30 years ago, and he was like, you basically, like, your constitution was stronger than your disease. Our job is to make your disease, your body, your constitution stronger than your disease, and you'll go into remission. That was a very pivotal moment. And then when I saw how many women were suffering from their periods, and I started talking to women, and they were saying, oh yeah, like, I pass out every month from my period.
Wow.
One woman told me, she's an attorney, and she says, yeah, I'm, when I'm in trial, I can't schedule trials during my period because I throw up so much.
Wow.
Women, things like, I mean, if anywhere I am, if people know who I am, they're like, oh my gosh, and they want to tell me how much they're suffering, because it's so taboo. No one's talking about it. No one's talking about it with each other, just how bad it is. They're like, oh, I'm having my period today, but there's so much shame entangled in this. So what I decided to do is I ended up, like, starting a new company, Brazen. Brazen means to overcome something shameful with swagger.
Oh, I love that. What a powerful word.
Right? I mean, I took months to name this company. Like, Conceivable is really good for Conceivable too. And so using the technology that we have a patent on this technology, using this technology from Conceivable, we decided that we would expand it in a new company in which we would build solutions for women and people with periods from before they start their periods, because 30% of girls, when they get their period, no one has ever mentioned that that's going to happen. And that's in the US only. That's not in a third world country, right? That's in the US. And so build software and solutions from before girls get their periods until the end of menopause. And then really try to be the trusted source for people across their entire reproductive life cycle, from getting your period, becoming sexually active, to thinking about pregnancy, being pregnant, postpartum, struggling with infertility, transitioning to menopause, and to the end.
Wow. That's so amazing. I just am so happy that this is happening, and also that you felt that call and you had the tools to do something about it. I think a lot of times we can look at a big issue and be like, oh my gosh, this is so discouraging. No one's doing anything about it. And I'm not the person who has the solution or the tools or the education or the whatever to actually bridge the gap, And so I love, and I find also, I'll say that there's a caveat to that. And sometimes we underestimate our own capacity and our own ability, and we downplay what we are capable of when there is a big thing to asking us, like a big challenge, asking us to rise to the occasion or do something about it. And I also hear so many women's stories, and this is the thing I love about the podcast and also the work that I get to do with women entrepreneurs, is that there is that moment of like, oh, wait, the thing that I feel called to solve, the problem I feel called to solve, or the thing that breaks my heart or makes me cry or really pulls at my heartstrings, I can actually do that and get paid for that and bridge the gap and help a lot of people and make a living and feel purposeful every day. It's so beautiful. And oh my gosh, okay. So tell us more about Brazen, and also like, so that's supplements, correct? Also?
So yeah, so I want to back up before we move on to that. Two things that you said, because I think it's really important about, people when they hear something, then they're like, oh, I should do something about that. And, one of the things as I was writing Seeing Red, that, because I was like, well, how are we not talking about this? I just can't understand. And as a linguist, former linguist, I was like, well, I'm going to go back to the beginning of time, words to try to like trace the language of menstruation. And what I found was that for the first 1,500 years of written language, there was nothing. There was not a single mention of menstruation or menstruating people.
Wow.
There's no like identification in those days. And then the first mention that was sort of public, I think in traditional Chinese medicine, like literature, there was mention of it, but things that regular people were reading was in the book of Leviticus in the Bible, in which it says something to the effect of, that thing is so vile, it's as vile as a menstruating woman or the devil.
Oh my gosh.
That's the first thing. And there, in the book of Leviticus, there's all kinds of things about how filthy we are because we menstruate, in the filth of menstruation and the stain of menstruation. And very shortly after that, Aristotle in the 3rd century said, women are the inferior species because they menstruate.
Wow.
They are feeble. And that was this is before the ovum was discovered, but he's like, basically all they contribute to reproduction is the serum, right? The blood in which the seed, the sperm, can grow. The seed is what contains the spirit and the intellect.
Oh, wow.
And that was the prevailing medical theory and philosophy about women's health from the 3rd until the 17th century.
Wow. And it kind of makes sense too, because, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think a lot of times, I know it's been this way in modern history. I don't know quite everything from that time period, but for women's health, it's almost a male dominated field. Is that correct? Like most OB-GYNs are, like OBGYNs are male. Or maybe that's changing, but for a long time they were, right?
Oh, for sure. For a long time, especially in the 50s. I mean, there's a very funny story we can come back to in the 1950s, how they were like curing hysteria. But,
right. Yes. I know about that, but I would love for you to share that.
but what that tracks back to what you were saying is about how, because when I read that, I was like, I know why there's so much shame around menstruation. And I know why no one's talking about it, because we have been generationally conditioned to believe that we are feeble, inferior, and filthy.
Yeah.
And if you walk down the aisle at Target, you are really reinforced by how many deodorant sprays there are, and scented this and scented douches and scented tampons. It is basically like screams like, you are dirty, you are filthy, and you need a sanitary pad. Right.
Yeah.
And and I think that's like, we just got this messaging that we are not enough. We are defective because we menstruate. And I think that because of so many generations of conditioning, that is like something that is really worthy of really working to untangle. And so when sometimes women entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs have ideas, I think that piece of it is like, but who am I? Who am I to tackle that?
Right.
Somewhere and if you look at Instagram and how, you can just see how, like, I can't speak for every single woman, but I know that for myself and so many other women, like, so many of us really struggle with our own self-esteem issues. And I think that stems back to that.
Totally. I can totally, yes. And I hear it all the time as a business coach for women. It comes up constantly. We actually just had a big conversation about this. And when we look at where it comes from, it's like we've received the messaging, like you're saying, that there's something inherently wrong or bad about us to hide.
Filthy.
Right? Filthy.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, bad is nice.
Oh, yeah. Right. Not nice word. Filthy, right?
To me, I think
So,
porn, like the grossest porn, like the
right.
grossest porn is like filth. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're like, oh, that's so dehumanizing or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
like, shit on my shoe. That's filth.
Yeah. Right. And then we're internalizing that to be
Yeah.
inherently part of us. And then we wonder why we might be under, I don't like this term, but underperforming,
Yes.
like we're not reaching our full potential, or we're holding ourselves back, or we're playing small, or we're doing whatever. Where does that come from originally? What's the root? We can say so many things about it. We can call it so many names, right? We can say it's a lack of confidence, it's a lack of self-worth, it's a lack of blah, blah, blah. But really, where does it come from and originate? I love that you're sharing this perspective, because yeah, when that's the messaging that we receive, and the layers of conditioning for thousands and thousands of years that we're coming into this world with, as a female as in a female body with a period, like, of course we feel a little bit wonky around that. Of course it's not something that we're like, yay, this is a part of me. Of course. So if you've been following me on social media, then you probably know that I recently relaunched my website, rebranded my business, and I am super happy about the work that my dear friend Becca was able to do on my website. Her company is called Bold and Boho, and she is all about bringing affordable brand design to soulful female entrepreneurs who are on the rise. She has these incredible templates for your website that are totally customizable, super easy to use, drag and drop. And these templates are for use on the website platform Showit, which I recently moved everything over to from Squarespace. She also has a podcast template and a blog template that you can add to any of these designs that are super beautiful and super optimized for your unique type of business. She has templates including one called Wildly Wealthy, Wild and Free, Ambitious Dreamer, World Changer, Rich Bitch, and Freedom Seeker. So there is a design and a template for you, no matter what type of business you run, and no matter what type of brand and web design and layout you prefer. So I highly recommend going and checking her stuff out. She is awesome. She's actually going to be on the podcast in a future episode, so you can hang tight and wait and make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and listen in weekly to hear her episode when it goes live, and you can learn more about her. But her work speaks for itself. It is incredibly beautiful, incredibly intuitive, and just incredible. I am so happy with the work that she did with me on my website, and I'm super excited for you to go check it out if you haven't already. I'm linking everything up for you in the show notes, as well as for her site, which is boldxboho.com. You can find that in the show notes. And I also have a special discount code that you can use to save $50 off any template that you purchase from her online store. And that code is Emily50, spelled EMILY 50.
In my book, I tell my daughter's first period story. She just got her period this year. She's 13.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes home from school, and she knows what I do for a living. She comes home from school and says, "How was your day?" And she's like, "Oh, I went to science, and I went to lunch, and I got my period." And I was like, "What? Oh my God!" And I was hugging her and crying. And I was like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "Mama, I knew you were going to make such a big deal out of this. Please, Mama." And I said, I just pushed her back, and I held her shoulders, and I looked her square in the eye, and I said, "I am going to make a big deal. I'm going to make a big fucking deal about it, because today you can make a human."
Mm-hmm.
You can make a human as of today. And that is a superstar secret skill that not everyone can do. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. And that is a reason to celebrate. And let's go out to dinner anywhere in the city you want to go. And she likes to eat good food. And she's like, Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, no, good place. She's like, I don't know, I really want Chick-fil-A. I'm like, no, we could go to a good place and do Chick-fil-A tomorrow. And she's like, no, I really want Chick-fil-A. I was like, okay, you're having your period. Let's go to Chick-fil-A. What was interesting is that one of my really, really, really dear friends called me after she read my book, and she said, "I can't believe that you talked about your daughter's first period in the book so publicly." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, it's so shameful."
That's the point.
I said, "Did you read the book?" It's at the end. I said, "Did you read the book?" It's about how do we I said, having a period isn't shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Having a period, like we can't, this species cannot continue without us having periods.
Mm-hmm.
And that is amazing. And I, it's not like I was saying something, very intimate about her first period experience,
Right.
about like using a tampon or something like that. But I thought, even in this generation, we're still perpetuating the shame with each other.
Yeah.
That this is something to be secluded and private and shameful. And I've had many women on social media really argue with me about, like, why are we even talking about this in public? This is shameful. Like, this is nobody's business. And I was like, we need to talk about it because 80 million of us are suffering every month, and that's not okay with me. Yeah. And I'm not going to stop talking about this until no one is suffering.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, so powerful. And also, I'm just wondering, like, hearing that story about your friend who read the book and then said that, right? It's like, how much unconditioning do we have to do? How much stripping away and unwinding is there to be done around just that one piece of it? And how many times do we have to hear a counter message before it starts sinking in, and before we start treating it that way, and before we start really embodying that perspective of, wait, this isn't shameful, this is actually really powerful and something to be celebrated and talked about. Because when something isn't talked about, that's when you have people being, the suffering can be perpetuating, right? Like it can just keep going because no one's talking about it. Right? Like the problem, then it's almost as if we can just turn a blind eye to it, as if it doesn't exist, but that's not the case. And we're seeing that now with these huge numbers of women, whether it's around infertility or just not being able to function and suffering every single month like clockwork. It's not okay. It's not what we are meant to be experiencing in this life, It's really cool.
Well, I think that also the part that almost no one knows is that, your menstrual cycle is a barometer of your overall health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I always say your menstrual cycle is an instrument of unfair advantage over men, because we get this feedback mechanism every single month. It's like your report card. And I like to say that your menstrual cycle is the sum of your habits. Like how your menstrual cycle presents is reflecting back to you how well your habits, whatever habits you're engaging in, is working for your particular body. And everybody's body needs something so fundamentally different. And so, like I'll talk to women who will say, I have really, really, really bad PMS or PMDD. And so we start talking, like, well, tell me, about what you're eating. Like, oh, I'm a vegan. Okay. And tell me, do you exercise? Yes, I do tons of CrossFit. Like I'll spin and do a CrossFit in the same day. And then, I'm trying to be a partner in a law firm, and I'm doing that, and I was like, but on the outside they look totally healthy, and they're like, I'm super healthy. Like and I'm like, yeah, but you are suicidal for part of the month. Yeah. And she's like, but that's just my period.
Yeah.
And you only have 1 day of menstrual blood instead of 4. And so what that tells us is that what you're eating isn't providing enough nutrients to make marrow, to make enough blood, to make a thick enough uterine lining for a healthy flow. And if it can't make enough uterine lining, every cell, tissue, organ in our bodies is nourished by blood. It's oxygenated and nourished by blood. And so when we are not necessarily anemic, but we don't have as much blood as like optimal, everything suffers. And so then when you're training a lot, on top of that, every time you contract a muscle, the muscle needs blood to make its next action. And so when you do really intense exercise and you're kind of depleted, you just continue to empty the tank. And so suddenly now the liver can't function to metabolize the hormones at the end of the menstrual cycle, and you start getting PMS, or you can get really bad cramping, or you can get the really severe kind of PMS, PMDD, which more people have than infertility.
Wow. Interesting.
And, I think that the other piece around that is that we think that our menstrual cycle is sort of just this nuisance and we should just cover it up and do whatever we can. But the reality is that all of those conditions, PCOS, endometriosis, significant menstrual cramping, irregular cycles. All of those things have been correlated with significant increase in the risk for things that kill us, like even significant menstrual pain associated with endometriosis increases women's risk for heart disease by almost 70%.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that connection. That's really fascinating. That's new information to me. That's really amazing.
As an acupuncturist, I'm like, it's a clotting disorder.
Okay. Wow. Yes. And because you could have a blood clot in your brain, not just in your uterus. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If the blood is not flowing out of your uterus freely, then you could guess, right, that the blood is not flowing appropriately in other parts of the body. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, so, it makes so much sense when you say it.
In addition to that, like you also have significant, especially with PCOS, significant risk for diabetes, stroke, and estrogen dominant cancers and dependent cancers. And so, often we think, well, I'll just take birth control to cover it up until I want to have a baby, or I'll just use, whatever. Even I'll just use Vitex, which can make it a lot better in the moment. But if you're not looking at it as a whole system and just sort of band-aiding it, you're not decreasing your risk for those over those long-term conditions that can be impactful. And you're missing the opportunity to optimize for health. To figure out like which piece of all of that is not working for my body, whether it's my diet, my exercise, or how much I'm sleeping or whatever.
You mentioned the piece about like, and I'm I want to be a partner in a law firm. Can you speak to that, how that piece impacts, not just like only if you're in a law firm, of course, but the sort of like stress, or what's the factor there that contributes to the menstrual cycle being compromised potentially?
Yeah, sure. So whether you're a startup founder, which every startup founder is probably laughing right now, whether you're a startup founder or trying to be, a partner in a law firm, or you just have a really physical job, or you're training really hard, all of that, one, puts stress on your body. And when you're under a lot of stress, whether it's physical or emotional stress, that we know that produces a lot of adrenaline, which produces a lot of cortisol. And there's an inverse relationship to cortisol levels and progesterone, which is necessary for healthy cycles. But more importantly, it takes energy and blood to make a healthy cycle. And so when the tank is just like me with my constitution, that what I would call your constitution is like how well your digestion can take the food that you're eating, break it down and turn it into energy, and how well you can use the nutrients to make marrow and make blood are strong determinants of what your menstrual cycle will look like. And when you're under a lot of stress or pressure, or like the example of work, the people who I know who are trying to be partner in a law firm are working 120 hours a week. So they're getting very little sleep.
Yeah.
And the only way to get restoration is through sleep. And so if you're not sleeping, nothing gets better. So in the behavioral health part of Brazen, sleep is a really high priority, but it's not enough just to tell somebody, that person who's working in a law firm or whatever, you need to get more sleep. You have to, this is what we borrowed from Chinese medicine, is you have to keep dissecting back and diagnosing back. So it's like, okay, this person is only getting 5 hours of sleep a night. Is it because she has too much work to do and she literally will lose her job if she doesn't work this much? Is it because she actually needs, like from your perspective, maybe she needs coaching, productivity coaching, so that she can get more done in less time? Maybe she needs stress management solutions so that even though she's working a lot, she can be continually in short bursts mitigating the impact of all of that stress. And maybe there's organ pathologies that are keeping her from being able to either fall asleep or stay asleep.
Yep.
So like in the Brazen technology is not out yet, but it's in beta testing right now. We'll be able to diagnose all of that and then create the behavioral solutions to pair up with the supplement solutions that we developed. So that way you're working on all of the pieces at once.
I love that so much, because I feel like there are so many like supplements out there potentially for people. Like I know there are different oil blends, and a lot of people take, I know there are just like women's health supplements, right? And that's all well and great if it works for your body and your constitution, and that's what you actually need. So but if you're just doing that and not addressing the behavioral changes, or you're not addressing the mental piece or the emotional piece, or, the whole picture, the whole person, I could see how that would either be ineffective or might actually do something potentially negative.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot? Like, do you see women who are taking like natural supplements or vitamins or whatever that are actually making it worse, or that are just kind of neutral for them?
So I think that at least in the women's health space, I think that there's several products that you can buy that are vitamin based. So you definitely need calcium, magnesium, you need certain B vitamins to have a healthy menstrual cycle. And if you are in fact deficient in those, taking those sometimes can make your symptoms better. They won't ever, it's a very good business model, because then you can use those products indefinitely. You won't ever get to the bottom of the problem and not need it.
Right.
And Vitex can be useful for some women in in improving PMS, not getting rid of, improving it. What you want to know is, like, if you are taking something and after probably 4 months, if you were to start titrating back and stop taking it, if the symptoms just come back automatically, then you're just using something that's going to be a Band-Aid, and you're going to probably have to take that until you're done, and you will have not addressed the problem that's causing it. And that's a missed opportunity. Sometimes people be like, oh, well, you're blaming me. Like I'm to blame for my period. I'm like, no, it's an opportunity. If you can figure out what the thing is that's not working, then you have agency, as opposed to just being a victim of a bad period.
Right.
And so, even though I have a couple supplement companies, ours are, all Chinese medicine. We use very few supplements otherwise, because I'd rather see people get it from food.
What kind of, I'm sure this is different for everybody based on their constitution, but do you have anything that's like foundational key things for what women should be eating more or less of to improve their period, or the symptoms of, if they have a lot of pain or PMS or anything?
So, I love that question. I really appreciate that you asked that. So one of the new things that's coming out with Brazen next month is actually, we have one formula for PMS and one formula for cramping, and that's just what we launched with, sort of to make sure that we had product market fit. But we always joke and say that's not real Chinese medicine, because real Chinese medicine is highly customized. And in the full Brazen suite, we call that like personalized medicine for your period. And so when you say, like, what are the foundational things that are good for cramping or PMS? It's such an important question. And women would often ask me this about fertility, like, what food's good for fertility? And I would always say none. I'm like, what? Should I fast? I'm like, no. You must diagnose. You must keep diagnosing. And so with menstrual pain, some people have menstrual pain because this will get sort of into the Chinese medicine, not obvious from a Western medical perspective, but like when people have really low body temperature and they're really cold all the time, they look sort of subclinical hypothyroid. Those people will have a lot of clotting and cramping in their menstrual blood from cold. In Chinese medicine, they say when the river freezes, it stops flowing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Conversely, sometimes you'll have women who are super overheated. So that woman, if you look at her tongue, is going to have a really pale tongue, swollen, puffy, pale, thicker white coat. But then on the other hand, you can have women who have a lot of pain due to inflammation and being overheated. And those women will have a lot more bleeding, like gushing, like really, really heavy bleeding, because heat is an accelerant. So if you put a pot of water on the stove and you turn it on, as the fire starts to accelerate the molecules of the water, it starts to move faster and faster until the water boils. When you get Ebola, your temperature goes up to 108, 109, and you start bleeding from your skin. Wow. Right? Because the molecules have been so activated, they have to expand and they move outside of the orifices. And so also cramping can be caused by constraint. So that girl we were talking about who's trying to be a partner in a law firm, who doesn't have any blood, who's got really bad PMDD, right? She's super tense. She's got neck and shoulder tension. She's got sinewy neck. She's really irritable around her period. That tension also causes constriction in the blood vessels, which then inhibits the free flow of blood, from the femoral artery, from the uterine artery, through the uterine wall. And so when we talk about, well, what are the best things for menstrual cramping, you have to figure out which one. So our formula kind of hits all three, this first formula, because we're trying to make sure that we can provide support sort of for more women and keep it cost effective. But now we've built out the solution so that we can customize for people. But optimally, you keep diagnosing back. And with PMS, we have 40 different symptoms that are associated with PMS. So whether that's even around mood. So you have some people who have a lot more anxiety and some people who have more irritability and anger. And then you have a group of people who have depression. And each one of those are caused by different things. And then you have bloating, which is like sort of, whatever symptoms you're having around PMS is indicating what are your squeaky wheels. So at the end of the cycle, the liver's trying to metabolize all the hormones and suddenly it's got extra load. What's the squeaky wheel? That's what's going to squeak when you're having PMS. So if you get really bloated and you have a lot of breast tenderness, right, fluids are getting stuck. And so we know, digestion is the squeaky wheel. This person's going to have a more swollen tongue. But if you get super irritable, right, then we know, the liver is not metabolizing the hormones effectively. It's more liver is the root of the problem, and so on and so on. And so I could go on longer and longer, but you can see how whether you're using Chinese herbs or food, which in Chinese medicine, there's no difference between herbs and food. Like food is medicine and every single food has a therapeutic effect. And so imagine this girl has 1 day of menstrual bleeding, but it's full of clots, stuck old blood. And so we're like, but we need to make more blood so the liver can work. So then you're like, okay, well, let's give more iron-rich food. Okay, kale, salad greens, salmon, not salad greens, like kale, spinach, pate, dried apricots, all of that is very iron-rich and helps to make blood. But if you make more blood when there's a lot of clots, you know what you actually make more of? Clots. And when you make more clots, you make more pain. So precision is really critical to be able to really effectively make huge changes in a short period of time.
This is so fascinating to me because I also have read a few books about like how to eat for each phase of your cycle. But that's so true what you're saying. It's like it has to be precise though, because like let's say if I have a lot of clots and I'm eating a ton of iron-rich foods, that would be actually having the inverse effect that I want. Right. It would be harder. And then I'd be like, this isn't working.
Right. And you're like, that person was wrong. Yeah. Apricots are not making more blood. My period sucks. I'm having so much pain. It's just because the order of operation is wrong. Right. You have to even in my book, Seeing Red, my editors are like, I want you to, we want you to teach people how to do this. I'm like, I had to do an algorithm to teach people to do this. Like, it isn't super, super obvious. We can give people a high level blueprint, but ultimately there's decision points along the whole way. I mean, imagine we have a woman who has polycystic ovarian syndrome. She struggles with her weight. She's, she needs to like change what she's eating because she's eating too many carbohydrates, and she's not getting much sleep. And so obviously you might say, well, okay, this person needs to like change her diet right now because she needs to lose weight and she's not eating so much carbohydrates and get more exercise. But her energy level's a 5 out of 10 and she's only sleeping 5 hours a night. And when you're not sleeping, you can't make behavior change. So then you want to make the behavior change. Well, what if we get her sleeping 6 hours? What does her energy change? So is her fatigue caused by not getting enough sleep, or is her fatigue caused by digestion can't make energy? Or is it caused by the food she's eating isn't the substrate for making high quality energy? So you see then there's layer on layer on layer on layer on layer. But that's the interesting stuff for me, are all those layers, because once you hack through those layers, you can create a roadmap in which it makes it a squillion times, and that's a medical term, a squillion times easier to make changes.
Have you ever wondered what it takes to become a successful life coach? Or maybe you've been looking at adding life coach training to your repertoire of skills, or perhaps you even want to start your own business and you want to know how to do that specifically in the coaching industry, and you're looking for a certification and a program and a training that can help you to do that. So if so, I want to recommend the program that I went through with my mentor, Janine Yoder. It's called Mentor Masterclass, and it is an all-in life coach training certification program and sisterhood for women who want to either become a life coach or just add this skill set to your resume or to what you're already doing so that you can become an even better leader, so that you can become an even better entrepreneur or just leader of your own life in some way. So if that speaks to you, you can check out the link in the show notes and head on over to check out more about Mentor Masterclass and learn about the program. And there's also a really incredible 7-day self-discovery week practice that Janine has put together for you. And that is 7 days of soulful practices to help you become a successful life coach. It's called the Self-Discovery Week. And I can't wait for you to go check it out because I know that you're going to have so many incredible transformations, breakthroughs, and perspective shifts in just 7 days and experience the power of her work. I've worked with Janine. She was my first coach. I found Mentor Masterclass through a Google search, actually, when I was thinking about leaving my full-time job way back in 2014, and was so set up for success through the training and the support that this program provides. So I really want to offer that to you guys. If you are feeling like you're curious about becoming a coach or you're looking for a certification, this is a really incredible experience that I recommend anyone who's looking to go into the coaching industry definitely go through and invest in, because it is an incredible experience that completely changed my life, my business, and so much about the way that I show up and receive support in sisterhood and lend my support in sisterhood. And I mean, healed incredible things from my childhood, family trauma, so much stuff came up in that experience. And the cool thing about it is it's not just you learning a bunch of tools, but it's really you integrating what you're learning into your own life, into your own work, and into your own relationships and all of that good stuff so that you can then give that to the people who you want to serve. You also can start your business right away. You don't have to wait until the 12-month training is complete, and which is what I did. I started getting paying clients the second month of my experience in the certification program. And the other cool part about it is that you get to learn from incredible experts in the industry about many different things that you need to know if you are going to become a coach. And you get an accountability partner and a sister circle group and so much support and the ability to practice with another student in the program. There is so much there. It is a treasure trove of pure gold and magic. And if you are looking at becoming a coach, I highly recommend this training program and this certification. So go ahead and check it out. Again, that is in the show notes for you, a clickable link to check out this experience and also sign up for the 7-day self-discovery week and see what you might learn.
Yes. And I love the honesty of that too, because I think we live in a world and in a time where there's like, oh, just do this and you'll be good. Like, just take this thing or just do this, or like a one size fits all instant gratification model. And I love the honesty of like, no, actually it doesn't work that way. But if you do it in a way that's precise and distinct for your unique body, then we can save lives. Then we can change lives. We can save lives, right? Like literally save lives, because you won't end up with a blood clot in your brain, you know? So right. Yeah. And actually I have a good friend who that just happened to her mom. So it's very close for me right now as we're having this conversation. It's like, wow, that the impact of this work is very real and very close. And for all of us, I think we all need to be paying attention to that, because it starts like it's already, we've probably already pushed the limit. We need to like really clean this stuff up for ourselves, because we just haven't had the conversations that need to be had, because maybe there hasn't been the research, there hasn't been the information, or it just hasn't reached each of us in the place that it needs to at the time it needs to when we're first starting our periods. And now we have some things to work on, And it's really important for many reasons, like quality of life. If you want to reach any goal in your business, it's important. If you have any kind of family health issues that you're looking at in the next 10, 20 years, it's important regardless.
Yeah. And just to be clear, there's no evidence that shows that having significant menstrual pain and endometriosis has any correlation to having blood clots like aneurysms in your brain. We're talking specifically about coronary artery disease, but there's no data. That doesn't mean that that's not a factor, but I don't want to scare people into thinking like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of menstrual clots and I'm going to have a brain aneurysm.
Yeah.
But I think that, also, we always joke at Brazen and say, in some ways, we built supplements that actually make themselves obsolete. So after you've been taking them for a while, and especially if you use the technology when it's available, after 4 to 6 months, you actually don't need us anymore. And there's a statement, they have all these statements of facts in Chinese medicine, and one of them is the good doctor treats the patient, the great doctor treats society, and the master makes herself obsolete. And that's absolutely what we're trying to do at Brazen, is create solutions that give women and people with periods the tools and resources and the know-how and the technology to be able to liberate themselves from anything that's in their way of having access to whatever it is that they want in their life. And the first place to start doing that is around your health. And the next is around your mindset and around, like what you believe is possible about your health and your future. And like we were talking about before, about even with your own ability to, take charge of something that you're passionate about, all of those are areas where, we're interested in doing on work to helping people to be free. That's like our whole company mission, is like, how do we set people, but how do we help people set themselves free?
Yes. Beautiful. I feel resonant with that message as well in my own work, but just a different pathway in. Really beautiful. Awesome. And your book is coming out November 12th. Yes. Awesome. Yes. Where can people find that?
So they can go to KirstenKarchmer.com, KirstenKarchmer.com. You can also get it on Amazon or Simon & Schuster. The book's title is Seeing Red. Have to kind of put my name with it because there's a few other things with Seeing Red. And I'm excited for it coming out. We've been having a lot of great conversations around it. And mostly I hope that it starts people talking about something that we've never talked about before. And we start to bring periods to the forefront of something really important and really valuable, and something worth paying attention to, and something worth recognizing is not a curse, but actually something so valuable. But we have to help people to not suffer before they can buy into this idea that it's not a curse. Because if you're throwing up 4 or 5 days a month, or passing out from it, or suicidal or whatever, you're never going to be able to say like, oh, it's the most valuable thing ever, I love my period. And be like, fuck you, man, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Right. Oh, yes. Oh, thank you so much for this conversation. It has been so enlightening for me, and I'm sure for everyone who's listening. They're all taking away a little nugget of wisdom to apply in their lives. And everybody go get the book. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun. If anybody has any questions, you can find me everywhere at Kirsten Karchmer. Pretty active on Facebook at Kirsten Karchmer Official also. And that's about it for me.
Awesome. I will link all of that contact information and details about you up in the show notes for this episode. So if anyone is looking for those links, or you want to connect with Kirsten, you can find her at the links in the show notes. So easy access.
Fantastic. It's been so lovely hanging out with you this afternoon.
Thank you. You as well. And thank you everyone for joining us for this conversation. I will talk to you again next week.
Hi, love. Thanks so much for listening to the Sexy Soulful Success podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode so that you won't miss any upcoming interviews or helpful advice from our incredible sisterhood and community of women entrepreneurs and leaders from across the globe. I have a few free gifts to share with you over on my website, emilycastle.com. On the homepage, you'll find 3 different tools for free support to help you grow and lead your soulful business with more intention, ease, and flow. And while you're on my site, you can also check out my 3 signature programs for aspiring and established women entrepreneurs. The Soulful Business Academy is my 12-month group coaching experience for aspiring and new entrepreneurs to build a strong foundation for your soul-aligned business and fearlessly launch your calling. This experience is open for you to join at any time, so you can head on over to my website to get started as soon as today and get plugged into incredible resources, support, and a community of like-hearted women. Thanks again for listening, and I can't wait to hear your feedback and suggestions in the reviews. If you have a topic you'd like me to discuss, or a question you'd like me to answer in an upcoming episode, or a guest you'd love for me to interview, you can pop those suggestions in with your rating and review. I hope to see you next week for another episode of Sexy Soulful Success.